Hello, Asma. We have the Prime Minister here. Welcome to Times Radio, Prime Minister.
Nice to see you. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
No, not at all.
How's the speech coming on? Have you written it yet?
Well, you have to wait till tomorrow.
Sounds like a no.
You have to wait till tomorrow, can't you? Anyway, wait and see.
Let me ask you something that might or might not be in it. We're 2 days into conference now. We're 2 years into your government.
Yes.
We haven't had a levelling up policy to speak of at this conference. This is supposed to be the Building Back Better conference. When are you going to give us a levelling up policy?
Loads of. Let me give you one example of the
policy you've announced at this conference.
Let me give you. Look at tutoring. I was just talking about it with Nick Robinson. Quite extraordinary what's happening with tutoring. We put in a tutoring revolution for this country, so that 6 million kids are able to access 6 million tutorial courses, so that the middle classes and those who've been able to work hard and afford tutors no longer have that necessarily that advantage over all the other parents and, who haven't got tutors for their kids, and whose kids haven't been getting that one-to-one attention that they need.
Okay.
And that's a fact. And that's
what
I mean by levelling. Let me give you another example.
That you're announcing new fresh policy.
Let me give you another example of levelling up. And let me give you another example.
There'll be more you're about to tell me.
Look at what's happening on wages. Which group do you think is seeing the fastest growth in their wages? Let me ask you. Which group?
We'll come to wages. I ask the questions, Prime Minister. This is how it works.
Let me tell you. I'll give you since you're failing to answer the question. I'll tell you the answer. It's the people on low pay who are seeing the fastest growth in their wages.
Okay.
That is
we're going
levelling
to come
up.
to that.
That is levelling up in action. Because what you're seeing is literally so yes, I'm not objecting to those on high incomes such as yourself getting rich.
You know that.
But what that's fine. But what is happening is that low-paid people are seeing a faster increase. That is levelling up.
Prime Minister, this is not me being impatient. This is the Mayor of Tees Valley, Ben Houchen, who apparently you're obsessed by. We read your aides say that. Yes. He told Times Radio a few days ago, time is running out for the next election. The government needs to set out a clear path of how they're going to start levelling up. His words, not mine.
I'm a massive fan of Ben Houchen, but I think anybody looking at what's happening in the northeast can see an incredible levelling up agenda. The economic campus in Darlington, the Treasury going to Darlington, right? The Freeport in Teesside. Look at what's happening with the creation of the investments coming in by GE, by General Electric, in building wind turbines in Teesside. Fantastic developments going on in the northeast across, and all that has been triggered by this government. And I think that the levelling up agenda. Let me tell you what levelling up is all about.
Well, because your ministers seem to disagree. Michael Gove thinks it's a social justice plan. Ben Houchen thinks it's a redistribution plan.
It's both.
Which one is it?
It's both.
And if it's both, it's meaningless. That's the problem. You haven't defined it properly.
Well, I tell you something about it. And you would at least concede this. It is the one thing that everybody is talking about and everybody knows that we want to do.
They know what it means, Prime Minister.
And they know what it means. It means I think that there is talent and genius and imagination and creativity everywhere in this country, but opportunity is not evenly distributed. And with education, I've talked about the tutoring. We're going to do much more in education, and we're putting massive amounts into supporting schools across the country. With skills, with our lifetime skills guarantee, with all the things that we're doing to help people skill up throughout their lives, with huge investments in infrastructure. And you've heard what we're saying. You talk about announcements at this conference. We're talking about Northern Powerhouse Rail, all the things we're going to do to level up in the north. Look at the difference. And I was looking at the line from Manchester to Stalybridge yesterday morning. And the difference between in intensity of the networks between the north and the south of the country is incredible. In the north, the railways were invented in the north of the country.
But we haven't announced anything on railways at this conference. You're going to talk about HS3.
We're going to talk about Northern Powerhouse Rail. We'll actually all the detail of the great integrated rail plan will, in fact, it's too long and too wonderful for one speech to be inserted.
We won't get that tomorrow either. Let me just ask you this:
you're going to get quite a lot on Northern Powerhouse Rail.
Good. On election night, let me ask you this, Prime Minister. On election night in December 2019, you made a victory speech. I thought it was quite a good one. You promised those Labour voters who you said only lent you their vote that you'll not let them down. So my question is, it's probably their question as well, how will the Red Wall be able to judge whether you've let them down. What's the metric?
I reject these. I reject terms like everywhere in the country we are going to continue with uniting and levelling up. And look at what we're doing. So on infrastructure.
How will they judge you on that? Though?
On infrastructure. Take Gigabit Broadband. I've mentioned Northern Powerhouse Rail. It's an enormous project. It's the biggest ever investment in the railways, and it will benefit areas that have not been levelled up, have not had attention for years. Take Gigabit Broadband. What I also said 2 years ago was that we'd increase provision of Gigabit Broadband so that everybody can listen to you, Tom, online. So to build your own circuit, to level up Times Radio, to give it the chance of competing with, and what we're doing, we've gone from 7%. Listen to me, 7% Gigabit Broadband to 65% across the country just in 2 years, and we're going to get to 100%. Now,
are you going to shortchange them? Because there's all this chat about you having an early general election, which will leave them shortchanged. You could do an extra year. The general election in 2023 going to go to full term.
We're focusing on the job in hand. We're getting on with uniting and levelling up.
No general election in 2023 then?
Infrastructure, technology. Education, infrastructure, technology. You're seeing already something that the British people haven't seen for more than a decade, which is an increase in pay packets. And as I said to you, the increase is being felt most by those on the lowest.
So you'll go the full term? No general election in 2023?
We are focusing on the job in hand, and nobody's thinking about that right now, frankly. Tom, we've come out of a pandemic. The UK's got the fastest growth of any G7 economy. We're dealing with all the opportunities that presents, some of the stresses and strains that presents, and it's a very exciting time. Why would we want to get on with delivering?
Let's talk about that. Cost of living, especially, taxes are going up. £20 a week universal credit uplift is being withdrawn. Prices, inflation going up. It's going to be a tough win for some people, isn't it?
Well, we're doing everything we can.
But it is.
I understand that some people, of course, people are feeling that it's tough, and I get that. And hardworking people, some of them will really be needing help, and that's why we're there to help them. That's why we've set up the £500 million fund. That's why we've increased all the benefits that are available. One of the first things I did when I became Prime Minister was to restore local housing allowance, by the way, to help people on low incomes with the cost of housing. But if you and to increase the living wage and make sure we look after people on low incomes. But what you can't do is raise taxes on everybody to subsidise low pay. I want to see pay grow organically in the way that it is. Now, on the cost of living, Tom, the thing to do is to focus on the ways to bring that down in the long term. And what you've got to do is you've got to invest in in transport infrastructure to make it cheaper, in energy. Energy is a big share of people's bills. And it's crazy that
they're going up.
It's crazy. That's because we're dependent on Russian hydrocarbons, on Russian gas, which we shouldn't be. And that's why we're doing the right thing to invest in wind, in renewables. Why it's right to go for nuclear. So you have clean, green energy sources on which we can be self-reliant in the UK and hold costs down. If you fix the housing market, it's the biggest chunk. In our lifetimes, particularly in your lifetime, it has grown as a share of people's weekly expenses. Why? Because of the shortage of housing. The answer is to fix the planning system, allow young people the chance to have their home in the way that they want and deserve.
Related to the cost of living crisis, of course, is this supply crisis that's going on. You've done quite a rare thing. I know we've been outside the bubble. You managed to unite pig farmers with socialist workers, because they're all out there having a shout at you now. Of course, business have a role. They need to pay people more. I'm sure they'd like to. But could you really not have done just a bit more yourself as the government to stop this supply chain, to stop this labour shortage crisis? Because that's what they're angry about. They want to do their bit, but they've seen nothing from the government to help them.
This country has a fantastic logistics and supply industry. And I was on the BBC the other day with a guy who was complaining that the pigs were going to be slaughtered. He said 100,000 pigs are going to die. And I was under the unhappy duty of pointing out to him that is what happens to pigs in this country.
Yeah, but they're not culled. 120,000 pigs aren't culled and burnt. You didn't seem to care about that.
He didn't seem to be aware of that. Well, I'm afraid they're eaten very often in this country. I don't know. Right. Do you have a bacon sandwich?
So you're not backing down of offending every pig farmer in the country, then?
That is what happens. Now, pig farmers in my family used to farm pigs, as it happens. Have an extreme.
Did you ever cull them?
Look, I'm going to break it to you, Tom. That if you have a bacon sandwich, have you ever had a bacon sandwich?
We're going to get into Ed Miliband territory.
No, don't dodge it. Have you ever had a bacon sandwich?
I want to ask you two questions. I want to ask you two questions, Prime Minister. The two short-fire questions, easy things to do.
How many bacon sandwiches have you
Multiple.
had?
If you want to do something to help.
Say those pigs, when you ate them, were not alive.
You made that point. You made that point.
I'm just going to break it to you.
We're short of time, Prime Minister. Let's move on. You've told businesses to raise wages. Yeah. There's something you can do to help that. You could raise the minimum wage yourself, over and above the low pay commission. Thinking about that?
Well, the minimum wage commission has to report in the normal way, and we will look at what they say.
Well, George Osborne did it unilaterally.
We will look at what they say.
You're not going to be outdone by George Osborne.
First of all, I'm proud to say that the living wage was something that I helped to pioneer in London, if you recall.
Would you like to do that?
And then we brought into central government as Conservatives, and it's the right thing to do. And I'm proud to have lifted it up. It's currently £8.91. And I'm sure that we will look very, very carefully at what the Living Wage Commission, I'm sure we will adopt whatever the Living Wage Commission has to say.
Motorists also struggling at the moment. We know what's going on. Petrol forecasts up and down the country, though that may be easing in some parts. The price of oil is soaring. It hit a 7-year high. US crude hit a 7-year high yesterday. But one thing you could also do is not raise fuel duty at the budget. Can you say you're going to do that?
I'm not going to comment on fiscal measures which are for the
put up fuel duty on motorists.
I'm not going to comment. This is a classic. You're going back to your tradition as.
So we do, Prime Minister. We ask you questions.
As a sun journalist.
Terrible business having to answer questions, isn't it?
Let me just. We don't. You heard what Rishi had to say about tax. We don't want to raise tax of any kind. Okay,
including fuel duty.
We don't want to raise tax of any kind.
That sounds positive.
That's not what we want to do, and that is not our instinct. What I do think we need to do is recognise that the era of relying on hydrocarbons, on oil and gas, is coming to an end, and that's why. So
that sounds negative. That sounds like you are going to tax fuel duty more.
No, I'm just saying that we've got to get ready for an exciting new era in which we rely on clean, green sources of energy. Already, every day, your computer that you're looking at now is powered more than 50%, or we get more than 50% of our juice from clean, green sources. Now, when I was a kid, 80% of our electricity came from coal. When I was mayor of London, it was 40%. It's now less than 1%, and it's going to go to zero. We can wean ourselves off hydrocarbons, and we can have cheaper sources of fuel.
I want to ask you about Sarah Everard. We talked a lot about that last week. Terrible tragedy. You've spoken a lot about the Met, their problems. You've spoken about increasing low conviction rates. I want to ask a slightly different question, a wider question about general behaviour towards women in society. You've got daughters. Do you worry about them when they walk home alone at night?
I don't want anybody to worry about walking our streets,
but
I think
they do.
That goes.
Do you worry?
That goes for men and for women and for girls, and I want our streets to be safe, and I want everybody to be confident walking down our street. That's the most important thing, and confidence breeds confidence. And that's why we're putting more CCTV out. That's why we're putting street lighting out. A big announcement on that yesterday. That's why we're putting more police out on the streets. And if you remember, Tom, what I did in London, we had safer neighbour teams in every ward. We brought crime down by about 20%. The murder rate was down by about 50%. And part of it's strong policing, but it's also about breeding a climate of confidence and safety. And it's about people being happy that their streets are basically safe. That's what I want.
Final question.
And the issue on domestic violence and rape, that I am seriously concerned about that. And I've said this many times, and I hope you don't mind me quickly repeating it. But the problem is the length of time it takes for these crimes to be properly disposed of by the system, and it's infuriating women, and millions and millions of them are basically feeling betrayed, and we need to fix that.
Final question. Tuesdays at Tory conference was always known as Boris Johnson Day. You'd descend, you'd cause mayhem, but now the poacher.
Here I am.
The poacher's turned gamekeeper.
I've descended like a Deus ex machina on your
you're
show.
Sixth from bottom. Hang on. You're sixth from bottom of the Con Home website's rankings of the cabinet. Conservative Home website's rankings. You're sixth from bottom.
Into every life, some rain must
Was it
fall.
more,
Tom,
was it more fun
I will have to cope
being
with
the poacher?
look, I think that this is a great conference, and everybody seems to be enjoying themselves. And if the biggest reproach to me at this conference so far is that there hasn't been some sort of populist uprising on the fringe, or some new standard bearer of revolt, I mean, you've got to go and find them, Tom. That's your job.
You're not going to do it for me.
You've got to, no, it's all going horribly right.